Just so you can see how this happens in other DAWs as well, I brought up Logic Pro, and we basically done the same thing. Here's our audio 1 track, that serial compression vocal. By the way, that's in your examples folder if you want to play around on your own DAW as well. And we've basically done the same thing. Here's that track here, and we have a compressor on it, which is this first compressor, and then we have a send, which goes out to bus 1, and we have an auxiliary track whose input is bus 1, who also has a compressor. So this is basically the same thing as we saw in Pro Tools, but just done within Logic. Okay, let's have a look at another form of serial compression in terms of subgroups. Now, if you ever learn anything about subgroups, subgroups are a great way to subgroup a whole bunch of inputs or a whole bunch of tracks like this guy: kick, snare, hat, tom, 1, 2, 3, 4, ride, and overhead. Now, if you wanted to bring down the overall drums, you would have to drag every one of these faders down, or you could make up a subgroup, an auxiliary track right over here. And here's how you do it in Pro Tools. Don't worry about if this is not applicable to you, but I mean, it's probably, I find it fairly interesting to kind of be a little versed into all the different DAWs, because you'll start to see some similarities between them. So our output of this kick channel here is bus 1 and 2, as this is this one. All of these go to bus 1 and 2, and then this auxiliary channel here is fed by bus 1 and 2. So let me just play that. I think there's a little introduction for like a measure or so until the drums actually come in. Okay, so now everything's going out to bus 1 and 2, and then this subgroup here, this aux channel, is being fed by 1 and 2. I can now adjust the entire level of the drums. I mean, try doing that without a subgroup. You have to grab every one of these faders. I mean, it's clear that if you want more kick drum, you would do that. If you want less hi-hat, then you would do that. But if you've set up your blend of drums and then you want to bring down the overall level of drums, then you have to pull everything down, in that same kind of relationship. Or if you place it into a subgroup, then it gets very easy just to ride your drums from there. So why do I bring this all up when we're talking about serial compression? Well, guess what I've done? I've looked at this first kick drum here and put a compressor on that. And so let's play that. Should come up in a second. Okay, so when the kick drum comes in, you can see there's a lot of gain reduction here. That's happening just for the kick drum, right? And I've done some makeup gain, adjust the attack so that first snap kind of comes through. Okay, so that's all working out well just for the kick drum, right? But how about if I shift click here, you can see that I have another compressor that's placed across the subgroup, which is the entire drums. So now we have two completely independent compressors in series, first working on the kick drum here. You'll notice that's a mono compressor, and then over here on a stereo track, it's a stereo compressor. And so you can compress the heck out of your kick drum and then doing just a little less. So you can see we're not seeing a lot of gain reduction on the overall drums, yet we're seeing a ton of it on the kick drum. So this is another example of serial compression. So you can see that we have a bunch of different ways to route compressors, limiters, and gates in line with just a single channel or across a subgroup or over an entire mix if you like. Now keep in mind you would need to have a 2-channel compressor if you ever wanted to process a stereo track or stereo channel. We can also use Sidechain to key in other inputs that trigger the detection and compress the compressors or gates that signal. Remember that example of the drums triggering the compression on the synth pad that we did a little while ago? We saw parallel or New York style compression, and then finally serial compression. Now we'll look at all of these routing options in the Dynamics in Action section soon. But before we do, let's kind of just quickly explore the different types of compressors, what characters they have, and which model you should be choosing for each application that you have.